This massive Charlie Kirk memorial service that happened just yesterday, honoring Kirk almost 2 weeks after he was killed, it highlighted and exposed a lot, especially with where we are in this moment and where things will or at least can go from here. So just to start things off, I'll let you know that you had tens of thousands of people gathering in and around State Farm Stadium in Arizona, including at least 20 members of the Trump administration, many of whom were given speaking spots, as well as several current and former Republican lawmakers, including House Speaker Mike Johnson, Senator Ted Cruz, and former Congressman Matt Gaetz. Right? And then you also had conservative commentators and right-wing influencers like Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, Laura Loomer, Kyle Rittenhouse, Elon Musk. And actually with Elon Musk, I mean, that's one of the first big takeaways. Musk sat next to Trump for part of the service. The two of them were seen shaking hands and chatting. You know, a very different scene from just months ago where they had a very public falling out, Musk insinuating that Trump was implicated in the Epstein files. And then actually, after their chat, you had Musk posting a photo of them at the service with the caption, "For Charlie." But then going back to the memorial, it began with Kirk's friends speaking about him and his work, as well as key members of his Turning Point USA discussing what's next for the organization.
We're gonna make TPUSA so big that it reaches you in heaven.
And to that point, according to Turning Point, the organization has received more than 62,000 requests since Kirk's death from students across the country to either start a chapter or get involved with an existing chapter, and donations they've also reportedly been pouring in. But then as far as what else we saw, you had a number of religious figures speaking, as well as Christian musicians performing. And that is also something that had a lot of people on the left and the right noting that this was seemingly a combination or a coming together of religion and politics. And one of the ways that people kind of saw that being connected was when you had J.D. Vance saying this.
He is a hero to the United States of America, and he is a martyr for the Christian faith.
Though there, you had many noting that the authorities haven't presented evidence that Kirk's religion played any role in his death. With that, you had people saying that this event as a whole, it showed the extent to which conservative Christianity and even Christian nationalism is making its way into the mainstream of the Republican Party. And then with that in mind, you had people pointing to things like War Secretary Pete Hegseth talking about this like it's a war.
Over time, he realized, like so many of us have, that this is not a political war. It's not even a cultural war. It's a spiritual war.
And then others like RFK seem to compare Kirk to Jesus.
Christ died at 33 years old, but he changed the trajectory of history. Charlie died at 31 years old, but because he had surrendered, he also now has changed the trajectory of history.
But definitely the person who kind of got a lot of attention on this front was White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, who repeatedly referred to the enemies that they were facing and also framing the situation as a fight between good and evil.
The light will defeat the dark. We will prevail over the forces of wickedness and evil. They cannot imagine what they have awakened. They cannot conceive of the army that they have arisen in all of us. And to those trying to incite violence against us, those trying to foment hatred against us, what do you have? You have nothing. You are nothing. You are wickedness, you are jealousy, you are envy, you are hatred.
Then outside of the Trump administration, you had Tucker Carlson invoking religion in a way that many criticize as being anti-Semitic.
It actually reminds me of my favorite story ever. So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it, and they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem. It doesn't work that way.
And with that, you had a lot of people reacting to that, saying that Carlson kind of just espoused what's considered a common anti-Semitic trope that the Jews are responsible for killing Jesus. But then, after all of that, it eventually came time for Charlie's wife, Erica, to speak. And you had her celebrating what she called the inspiration that Kirk's murder had given to his supporters to embrace Christianity.
After Charlie's assassination, we didn't see violence. We didn't see rioting. We didn't see revolution. Instead, we saw what my husband always prayed he would see in this country. We saw revival. This past week, we saw people open a Bible for the first time in a decade. We saw people pray for the first time since they were children. We saw people go to a church service for the first time in their entire lives.
Right, but then all of that, it led to what's been seen as one of the most powerful moments from the whole thing. And that was Erica saying this of the man who killed her husband.
My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men just like the one who took his life. That young man, I forgive him. The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love. Love for our enemies and love for those who persecute us.
And then after Erica, you had Trump, who he joked or said that he didn't agree with Erica.
Shortly before Charlie arrived on campus, the day he was assassinated, a staff member texted him that there were many critics and students who were opposed to his views, and rather strenuously in the crowd. And that actually made him feel good, because he wanted to convince them. He understood. He really did. He understood what was right. And he was right about that. A lot of it was based on common sense, by the way. Charlie wrote back to the staff member saying, I'm not here to fight them. I want to know them and love them, and I want to reach them and try and lead them into a great way of life in our country. In that private moment on his dying day, we find everything we need to know about who Charlie Kirk truly was. He was a missionary with a noble spirit and a great, great purpose. He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica. But now Erica can talk to me and the whole group, and maybe they can convince me that that's not right, but I can't stand my opponent.
And then with that, you had Trump repeating his claim that political violence comes largely from the left and that left-wing protesters are often paid agitators, and saying again his administration would be looking into it.
The Department of Justice is also investigating networks of radical left maniacs who fund, organize, fuel, and perpetrate political violence, and we think we know who many of them are.
Right, and with all that, Trump's speech at times, it sounded more like a campaign speech than a eulogy to many. He spent several minutes talking about his administration's efforts to reduce autism rates and his decision to deploy the National Guard and federal agents to Washington, and he actually claimed that Kirk had urged him to dispatch federal troops to Chicago.
One of the last things he said to me is, please, sir, save Chicago. We're going to do that. We're going to save Chicago from horrible crime.
Though with all that, Trump's comments about hating his opponent have definitely drawn kind of the most attention. Not only because it would go against what Erica Kirk herself said and which he claimed her husband believed, but also because they're not just words. They appear to be backed up by what Trump has done and continues to do. With another one of the big things this weekend being directing Attorney General Pam Bondi to do more to prosecute his political enemies, including FBI Director James Comey, Senator Adam Schiff, and New York Attorney General Letitia James. And it's not like, according to anonymous sources, right? You had him writing on social media. Pam, I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same old story as last time, all talk, no action. Nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam Shifty Schiff, Letitia? We're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. Right, and connected to that, you also had him complaining about the now former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Eric Siebert, calling him a woke rhino who is never going to do his job, and adding, he even lied to the media and said he quit and that we had no case. No, I fired him, and there is a great case, and many lawyers and legal pundits say so. Now with that, Siebert technically resigned on Friday, though clearly with little choice in the matter. And that is reportedly because his district is actually the one investigating Letitia James and James Comey, but he wouldn't bring charges against them without sufficient evidence. And in fact, similarly, administration officials have reportedly ramped up pressure against the U.S. Attorney in Maryland, Kelly O'Hayes. She's a career prosecutor who has spent more than a decade in that office, and she's been leading inquiries into Schiff, as well as Trump's former national security advisor turned critic, John Bolton. And Hayes has also reportedly indicated that she won't bring charges unless her team discovered evidence to support them, which I should note, of course, is what prosecutors are supposed to do. Of course, we're gonna have to wait to see what happens. Hayes still has her job for now. And then also to take Siebert's place, you have Trump recommending an attorney who is on his personal legal team and has never been a prosecutor. Right? And so just ultimately, it looks like you have Trump taking his personalization and politicization of the Justice Department to a whole other level. And then of course, as we're seeing Trump and other officials directly tie Kirk to the stuff that they're doing, we're gonna have to wait wait to see how that continues to develop, but it seems like they are emboldened and empowered. And of course, in the meantime, yes, this is a news show, but I also want it to be a conversation. So I'd love to know your thoughts, opinions, reactions, and even questions that are popping up in your mind as you're seeing all this.